Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Power Network. We have another exciting interview today with Heather from Vancouver, Canada. So, welcome, Heather.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is fun because we didn't really have too much pre-conversation, so I'm going to be learning about her along with all of you. So, this is going to be fun. I like this. So, my first question is always the same. If you would tell us a little bit about your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
Sure, yeah. So I am now a gut health coach, but previously I was studying biochemistry and neuroscience, trying to figure out how to prevent Alzheimer's. And the deeper I dove into like the biochemistry and the physiology, I realized like our body is intelligent and already really knows how to function and heal itself, as long as it's given the right physiological and biochemical conditions. And we're also bioelectric beings. So more recently, I've looked more into like energy fields and structured water and all that good stuff. So, anyways, I take a very holistic approach in that in my own journey with, healing from mold toxicity and SIBO, and very painful bloating, which was, maybe not that surprising that they were kind of right after each other. The mold kind of triggered the SIBO and the bloating and the stool changes. And I couldn't eat my favorite foods. I was like, why can't I have my kale smoothie anymore? Like it would just,
Wow.
yeah, create a lot of pain. And yeah, it took me down this healing journey of what is digestion? How does it work? Why isn't mine working? And now I help people heal their own digestion with, usually cases of SIBO, IBS, constipation, those kind of things. And yeah, I healed myself within like 5 months or so, but I know not everyone's journey is always that straightforward. And I think meditation also played a big role in that as well.
It's funny. I was thinking about a recent client I had that had chronic, lifelong IBS, went to all kinds of practitioners and
Yeah.
health coaches and everything and Western medicine. Um, but in our discovery, the piece that you were talking about in meditation and everything is she identified herself, her identity was tied to the IBS.
Whoa. As in, like,
I'm a person who
I
has
must be
IBS.
chronically in pain, or who am I kind of thing?
Well, who I am
Yeah,
is a person with IBS, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah.
And so that was a piece of it too, where it's almost to me like it held it in place because that's the identity she gave herself.
Exactly. Wow. That is such a profound like realization. I'm curious what was the moment she realized that? Because that takes a lot of reflection and self-awareness.
Well,
Um,
it was through our conversation that it came up.
oh,
And
wow.
for me, I knew it was like the earth opened up. It's like this is huge. This is big. I don't think at
Yeah.
that time she grasped how monumental that awareness, that aha was, you
Yeah.
know, is yeah. And so I like when you talk about the holistic approach, and I'm still what is it, SIBO? You called it SIBO?
Oh, yeah. So small
What
intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO.
ah, I I'm not real familiar with all that. That's why I love having you on
Right.
to teach us about that. So
Yeah.
yes, so there's yeah, you could be doing all the right things. I'm still blown away that you couldn't have kale smoothies. You would think you're doing something good for your body. That it's just like,
Right.
how does that
Yeah.
happen?
That's why there's so much confusion I find on social media these days, and conflicting nutrition advice, because, what's good for one person's digestion might not be good for another person's, if they're dealing with things like SIBO, IBS, candida, etc. They can't handle the same amount of fiber. Um, but just one little point, I think I wanted to circle back on the identity piece, and then I can talk about, SIBO and all that good stuff. But um, another piece that recently hit me pretty hard was people who are chronically ill. I wonder, if there was a part of you in childhood that learned, I need to be sick in order to receive love. Because sometimes our parents are busy, and then as soon as you get hurt or you're sick, that's when they, you know, come to your aid and maybe have a different, more loving approach. And maybe that got, embedded in our subconscious and is affecting our adulthood. So I don't know if that, resonates with anyone, but it hit me kind of hard. Mm,
No, but it's a very valid statement and it's true. I mean, there could
yeah.
be a whole nother side conversation we could have about this, but we won't. But not right now. But
Good.
that's an excellent point. I wonder how many people are like gasping at the moment, going, oh no, that might be me. Because that's a very
Yeah.
valid point.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to like define you, but the more awareness, the more you can, work with it and release it. And I do kind of somatic awareness type experiences with my clients, and the body holds on to things that we don't realize. So, yeah, going deep into the subconscious and listening to what the body wants to release is extremely powerful.
It is because, I mean, I think there's a general consensus that we understand now that our natural state is well-being. And like you started this conversation, is our bodies know how to heal itself unless we get in the way.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we live in a very, complex systemic um, world with a little bit of inequality. So, yeah, we can do the best we can with what we are living in.
Well, and you mentioned too, your own journey was because you got exposed to mold.
Yeah. Yeah, which, stems from being a student and trying to, find cheap housing and not really questioning that musty smell that was coming from the basement. Like, oh, that's just, what your grandma's house smells like. No big deal. In retrospect, it was a big deal.
It was a very big deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right, there is so much information out there that I can see where, someone who's been dealing with, let's say, a long time, it gets very confusing to know where to start or where to go next. So what would you, recommend or tell somebody?
Yeah. I mean, looking at your environment, checking for signs of mold, but also your emotional and mental environment as well. Like, what kind of stories are you telling yourself about your self-worth, about your health? A lot of our, subconscious programming is starting, to run the show. Um, and then looking at like your digestive habits, like, uh, are you able to create healthy meals for yourself, or are you always like rushed and eating fast food? Um, and then, yeah, like just paying attention to the patterns that you might be noticing. So, like, oh, when I rush off to work and eat a protein ball, I'm constipated for the next 2 days because I didn't actually, hydrate in the morning, or, um, I'm too stressed to fully digest my meal. Those are kind of where I would start looking for clues of what sort of patterns in your life might be affecting your physiology. Uh, And then, of course, working with practitioners who are trained in assessing symptomology. So, for example, in my intake form, I have like 100 questions or so about, what symptoms you're experiencing and how those can relate to actual like physiological systems and organs in your body. Um, yeah, I think that's where I would start.
Well, and the first thing that came to mind is, it's you said is the patterns, and that we make excuses for our patterns to justify why we do them, and then we pay for them, and then we suffer, and it becomes this vicious cycle. So how do you know when
Yeah.
somebody's ready to start making changes?
Uh, how do we, yeah, I mean, that's up to you. But if you are done with the same old chronic symptoms and know that you deserve better, maybe you're just like a little bit scared of, trusting what's next, like in terms of will it actually work? What's going to be the biggest bang for my buck? Um, how can I proceed at a pace that feels safe to me? Because, you can't just like jump all in on a brand new lifestyle and supplement plan without that first like feeling of safety and trust within your body, but also maybe with the plan or the practitioner. So yeah, looking for avenues of like building more trust with your body, your intuition, and trained practitioners who can actually guide you because you can do it by yourself, and I did that for a little bit, um, and it was hard, and then I eventually sought some support, but I do have a science background, so maybe it was more fun for me to go read research papers, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. There's lots of opportunities and avenues for receiving support. And, as a holistic nutritionist, I'm always telling people, like, yeah, go do the doctor's appointments, go see this or that practitioner that you already have a relationship with. And it's okay to build more of a team, get more practitioners on your team, the more brains, the merrier kind of philosophy. Um, but yeah.
No, that's very good. And what's coming to mind too is I think a lot of people get scared like they're just going to have to change their entire life overnight when that's actually not the best way to do it. And doing
Yeah,
baby steps until that's like solid in place and you have that piece handled before you go to the next piece.
exactly. Yeah, like for example, just starting with one mineral supplement regimen, adding in a mineral supplement every morning. That could be like step one. And honestly, like usually it's step one for the people that I work with, because we are all a little bit nutrient depleted, our soils are being degraded at an alarming rate. I think I read a statistic the other day that by 2050, if things don't change, we're on track for like 90% of our soils to be degraded. So that's alarming. Anyways, deep breaths.
Right.
We will figure it out. We're a smart species. Anyways, yeah, and so what I wanted to highlight there is that we need minerals for so many of our enzymatic bodily functions, right? And I think that's one of the main reasons that we are seeing more and more chronic illness is we don't have our nutrient or sorry, and our mineral statuses up. So it's something that I find super simple, but it's like gives you the spark plugs for digestion. It helps build your stomach acid. Um, it helps literally every enzyme in your body process better. But it's about balance as well. Like you can, have an imbalance of too much of one mineral or not enough of another. So it can be more nuanced than just take a mineral supplement. But anyways, that would be one example of a baby step someone could take.
Well, what else comes to mind that you would like to share or you'd like people to know about it?
Um, yeah, so I think my approach to gut healing is rooted in like gut brain research. So I think you need to keep equal attention on nervous system health and gut health, because you can't really heal one without the other. Um, and I'm actually moving more towards starting with nervous system health now. I think in the past I was more on the like, let's dig into the nutrition, kill off the pathogens, do the weed seed feed protocol, which is great. But I'm noticing when we start with the nervous system piece first, we can make a lot more progress more quickly and have like less relapses. Um, so yeah, tuning into your stress levels, maybe, you know, having some tough conversations with yourself about boundaries, how you can create more peace in your daily routine. I know it can be challenging, but simple things, even just like a 5 minute breathwork type practice can it completely shift your physiology. Um, Maybe even 1 minute if that's all you have, like um yeah. So I actually do have a gut reset challenge coming up. We're starting on Saturday, but the reason I made it is because I've seen so much intriguing research recently and anecdotes of, stories of people healing through nervous system work alone. Um, for example, I think, have you heard of Nerva? They're like a gut-directed hypnotherapy app.
No, I haven't. This is
Okay,
intriguing.
well, if you're in the IBS world, you might have heard of it, but it's really cool. They've done some research with IBS patients, and they put them through like 6 weeks of clinical hypnotherapy. But it's basically like a guided meditation that's bringing positive energy and visualizations into your gut, your body, like visualizing like, oh, digestion is flowing smoothly, things like that. That really tap into like the subconscious as well. And so, anyways, they did a 6 week trial, and for 10 minutes a day, the participants actually ended up decreasing their IBS symptom severity to the same extent as those that were on a FODMAP, or sorry, low FODMAP diet, which is basically just a low fiber diet, um, which is great. Like that shows you how powerful this sort of gut brain interaction or, the vagus nerve is. Um, it can, strengthening that connection by like practicing those kind of calming, rewiring type activities. Hypnotherapy is amazing. Meditation is amazing. It's not for everyone, but if you're
Right.
able to really like slow down, um, maybe you have other meditative hobbies like singing or knitting or coloring. But anyways, it's I think the deeper you go into the subconscious, the more longer lasting those effects are. So anyways, that's my inspiration for kind of putting together some of these vagus nerve toning exercises, some reflection prompts, and some guided experiences to really like go deep into that nervous system connection and remind your body that it's safe, like it's okay to let your guard down. I think a lot of us are like walking around a little bit on guard, maybe hypervigilant, just like checking your phone. What am I missing? What am I scheduled for tomorrow? Like, did I respond to this email? Like, there's so much in our modern world that is overstimulating our nervous systems. So anyways, I think it's really important to start with the nervous system piece. Uh, and the science is more and more clear how impactful it is. And last little point here, I really want to get across is maybe not many people know this, but IBS or irritable bowel syndrome is now being categorized as a uh, disorder of gut-brain interaction. If you look up the clinical definition, and sorry, there's anyways, so um, what that tells you is that it's not just all in the gut. It's actually created, that pain and the signaling is created by the vagus nerve, sending messages from the gut up to the brain. And so in some people that have a lot of bloating, they might not actually have any pain. So we look at those people and be like, what's going on here? And we realized that the people that do have pain have something called visceral hypersensitivity, where the nerves in the gut are extra sensitive and more quickly or uh, able to send that pain signal up to the brain, which, is linked to childhood trauma and stress and, yeah, all those chronic stress related things. So, anyways, that's my main takeaway there. If you are struggling with bloating and indigestion, take a step back and sort of assess your nervous system health and your habits and how maybe like eating while distracted, like even just watching TV while eating can slow down and sort of suppress those like gastric juices and sort of inhibit your ability to digest.
I can get that. It's kind of funny you say that because I'm guilty of it myself, but for whatever reason, I make a ritual out of eating my breakfast with no distractions, just because
Yeah.
it's my first thing in the morning, and I make myself sit at my kitchen table, not in front of my computer or the
Yeah.
TV, or and just sit there and try to consciously eat. It's
Yeah.
we're so busy like at work or fast, like you said, a lot of people eat fast food and they're inhaling it. And I think there's like, because you're talking about the brain gut connection
Mhm.
and that, you know, I think why it's becoming, I'm making this up, but it's just a perception that came to me is when I grew up, we ate every meal at the dinner, no TV, there were no cell phones back then. And we talked
Yeah.
to each other. And I think there was like this preparation, like your body was getting ready to receive food.
Mhm.
And so it could start, it's like whatever process goes on in our body, it was already starting before we ate the food. And if we're just
Yeah.
driving through a drive-up window and grabbing it, we haven't done a thing. This all of a sudden there's like this intake going in our bodies, like, oh my God, what is this?
Surprise.
Yeah, it's like we're eating that. And then we end up with heartburn uh
Yeah,
and like you
exactly.
said, and I almost think somebody who doesn't have physical pain that is almost more dangerous because it's easy to ignore.
Oh, yeah, like, oh, this is just my new normal. I'm aging. Well, I'm bloated every day, especially at night, but I guess this is just what I'm gonna live with. That breaks my heart. Yeah.
Oh, and I think, well, and like you said, with the soil and everything,
Mhm.
it's so easy to ignore it until it's chronic or it's progressed and caused other health issues when it could be prevented as well as dealt with early on when you
Mhm.
already kind of know that no, this isn't really the new norm. This is your body telling you something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even just eating like a high carb, high processed food diet depletes your body of minerals because it takes more energy and nutrients to actually metabolize. something like white bread than in that food is actually giving you.
Yeah.
So maybe that makes you pause a little bit next time you're at the bakery. Um,
Well, and what's interesting, I
full
don't
range.
know if it's that way in Canada, but for myself personally, I can't eat any, I don't care if it's gluten-free, if it's organic, and what type of wheat it is, any kind of flour that's in the US anyway, because that's all I can speak to, I
Mm,
cannot eat those in any way, shape, or form. But if it comes from Italy or France, I have no side effects.
yeah.
So,
Do you specifically look for bread in the grocery store from those countries, or is that a thing?
well, it is because we get things imported,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
so like there's pastas like if you go to your health food stores or
Oh yeah.
um,
Well,
and they'll
yeah, no,
say imported. It's a product imported from Italy, let's say, on a pasta.
yeah. For pasta, that makes sense. But for bread, I'm not sure if that fully makes sense.
Well,
Uh,
I've been there.
yeah.
I When I visit those countries, I eat
Uh,
it, and nothing happens.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very common story I hear as well. Um, I do enjoy going to like my local bakery that mills their own flour. They have a special process and it's organic. So, oh, yeah, a lot of wheat is laden with pesticides like glyphosate, um, and it's hybridized differently, like the way that it's been grown and selected for in the States and Canada and stuff is very different than what some of the more traditional uh, strains of wheat are and how they're cultured um, in some countries. Yeah.
And just this one tidbit little knowledge, something that kind of stuck out that you said is like if you're eating white bread or processed bread from a fast food place and it's robbing your body of minerals because of what your body needs to do to process it.
Right.
I mean, right there, that's actually huge just to
Yeah.
have an understanding of what, just for a millisecond, to have an aha about something you don't even think about, you know?
Yeah. Like this is just culturally what I'm used to is kind of the story that a lot of people might have. And I think that's the hard part about like being a gut health and nutritionist specialist is that, you know, habit change isn't as simple as like, here's a meal plan, enjoy. It's there's a lot of emotions tied to food, like this is what makes me feel safe, or this reminds me of my family. And so I think bringing more like a mental awareness to those identities that we attach to certain foods and making like intelligent swaps and, shifts that's, still help fit those needs, those emotional needs, but maybe in a slightly different way. I think that's the way I like to meet clients where they're at and sort of make those like mini adjustments in an easier way.
Well, and it sounds like, you're able to dial in specifically what, getting to know that client, what is going on with them, and that it's not one fit all, or it's not like buy this over the counter drug if you have gut health, issues, which is so
Right.
prevalent on the internet. And, with all the misinformation that's out there to really, you know, and trying to self diagnose can actually be quite dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah, there is a lot of crappy, no pun intended, um, gut health products on the market. Even probiotics, a lot of them may or may not actually have what they say they have in them. Like most supplements, like I think I read a stat like 70% of supplements don't have what they say they have on the label, unfortunately. So brand quality, brand trust is actually really, really important. But yeah, we can definitely go into more detail on that. I'm just gonna go inside. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you were get to enjoy some of that sunshine outside.
I know my computer wants me to go inside now. Um, but yeah, I guess I could touch on SIBO because I know we briefly mentioned that earlier. And I didn't fully describe it, but or we could talk about probiotics.
Well, go ahead. Absolutely.
Um, okay, well, just to define SIBO, because I think maybe it's helpful for people who have chronic bloating or heartburn, or even if maybe they have an IBS diagnosis. It's helpful, I think, to understand that about 70% of IBS cases are actually linked to SIBO, so that it is when the bacteria in your colon actually start moving up into the small intestine, where we're supposed to have a little bit, but not a lot. And so when they start moving up into that small intestine and fermenting, where they shouldn't be, because maybe there's extra food particles sitting around that we haven't been able to move through the digestive tract because our nervous system is stressed, um, our stomach acid is too low, we haven't triggered the right enzymes to be released in that small intestine where 90% of our nutrients are absorbed just in that like small little segment right below the stomach. Um, so anyways, so then those bacteria start fermenting, creating excess gas, which, makes you feel a bit bloated. And then your body draws more water into the intestines to kind of flush that out, which only increases the bloating and might, trigger some pain if you have that visceral sensitivity in the nervous system. So, yeah, hopefully that is an aha moment, and maybe something to look into if, if you're interested. There are ways of testing for that, like, breath testing. But it's also kind of obvious if you do like a food diary and you track sort of which foods and, when you're eating. Snacking is a big one. Like over snacking can actually increase bloating because you're turning off that migrating motor complex that's supposed to like push through food through your intestines. Every time you eat, that turns off. So you want to be careful about grazing throughout the day and how that might be affecting your digestion. Um, but it's all related, like we're a huge intelligent system. So I think the more education and understanding people have around how digestion is supposed to work, the easier it is to like feel motivated to do those daily habits, like you said, eating your breakfast in isolation or just like a calm environment, um, and enjoying your meal and smelling and tasting and touching it, to help with those digestive juices.
That's amazing. So if somebody wants to get in, connect with you and find out a little bit more about your services and what you do if they're curious, how would they connect with you?
Yeah, definitely. I am on Instagram at Heather underscore neurofit. Uh, Also same on Facebook, and my website is currently getting a makeover, but you can still find it at neurofitforlife.org. Um, and same for my Gmail, neurofitforlife@gmail.com. But yeah, I'm excited for the nervous system challenge to kick off on Saturday. So that's a 3-week challenge and it's a group program. So I'm really excited to build a container for people to come and learn about this gut-brain connection and really dig into like the daily practices that will help support, strengthen that vagus nerve, and work more on like the emotional side of processing those signals from our gut and vice versa, brain to gut, gut to brain. Yeah,
I really like that. What came to mind too is one, when you're doing it as a group, you know you're not alone. And two,
yeah,
I think it helps with accountability. You know, that for
precisely.
whatever reason, we're more wired to be accountable to somebody else than we are by ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I built it that way, and I love accountability. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
That's good. Well, I want to let the audience know that we'll be putting all this contact information and about this Saturday kickoff in the comments down below so that you can come back and find it and connect with Heather today. And so before we go, is there any parting words of wisdom that you would like to share?
I think it's okay to slow down. It's okay to do nothing. You deserve optimal health. So, if you've been putting off some symptoms or looking into some things or making changes, just know that you deserve optimal health.
That's beautiful. Well, Heather, thank you so much for being here today, and I look forward to seeing more of you here in the future.
Aw, thanks so much. I appreciate it.